my name is Anel Ngriathi, and welcome to another episode of Behavior Change on Horizon TV. Today, we will be talking about listening skills. Yes, listening skills. Now, in our previous episode, we've been talking a lot about communication and why that's important. And so today, we're going to be sitting on the other side of that conversation where we're going to be listening to that communication, perceiving it, hearing it, and all of the above. And we're going to learn how to communicate that we're listening, okay? And to start, we are going to start by differentiating the difference between hearing and listening. Now, when I talk about hearing, I'm talking about the use of your sense of hearing. That is your ability to perceive sound from the environment, okay? So sound can be heard indiscriminately. That means that even as you're listening to this video as a viewer, you're able to still hear things from the environment around you, but you're focusing, you're listening to my voice, okay? So hearing is a sense. There are some who do not have the sense, and those are the people who are deaf or who are hard of hearing, meaning they can hear, but they're not able to actively differentiate the sounds or hear clearly to be able to differentiate, okay? So when we're talking about listening as opposed to hearing, we're talking about being able to focus your attention on a particular sound, okay? So when you're focusing your attention on a particular sound, that means you're processing it, you're taking time to understand what is being said, okay? All right. So when you're talking about listening skills, sometimes it's very important for you as the listener to communicate to the speaker or the person who is talking that you are listening to what they're saying. You're paying attention to what they're saying, okay? Because sometimes you can be listening to a conversation, but your body language is not exactly communicating interest in what is being said, okay? So here are some ways in which you can be a proper listener, or you can actively show listening skills. These are called active listening skills. And the first would be the use of verbal nodding. Verbal nodding is when someone is talking to you and you're nodding, okay? And nodding, not quick as in you're agreeing, but it's light, it's And when you're doing the nodding, you're also using sounds to communicate that you're listening. And these sounds are not interruptive sounds. They are sounds like, ah, I see. Okay? So there are sounds that will encourage the flow of conversation without actively interrupting the speaker. I hope I have you there. That's what we call the verbal nods. So when someone has spoken and spoken and spoken, and they've come to the end of their conversation, sometimes it can be very important to summarize how you've understood the message that has been communicated. Okay? So, and summarizing or paraphrasing and summarizing is basically being able to understand what has been communicated to you, processing it, and then delivering it back to the person who has said it. And doing this ensures that there is no miscommunication, that the message has been received exactly as it was supposed to be communicated. And this also allows for clarity to be sought. So if there's any misunderstanding, the summarizing and paraphrasing allows for the speaker to then come in and say, I don't quite agree with what you said, or I agree with what you said, okay? And it shows that you've actively been paying attention, that you've actually been following through, all right? Another tip for active listening is to be able to ask follow-up questions on what was said, okay? So if there's any one point of the conversation where the speaker was talking about something and you are not able to process it or understand it at the time, then after they're done speaking, or they've taken a pause waiting for your response, now would be the time to follow up with questions. And one thing about conversation is that you should never be afraid to ask for clarity. Why? Because communication promotes understanding, and you not asking a question is you laying the foundation for misunderstanding. All right? Okay, so we've talked about verbal nods, we've talked about summarizing and paraphrasing, and then we've talked about follow-up questions. All right, next thing is eye contact. When you're speaking to someone or when you're listening to someone speak, it's very important that you maintain eye contact every now and then. Now, I'm not talking about like direct staring without blinking. No, I'm talking about maintaining eye contact for a bit and then possibly shifting your gaze elsewhere and coming back. Shifting your gaze elsewhere and coming back. Now it's up to you to like get comfortable and practice shifting your gaze, but always remember that where your eyes are at is where your attention is. Okay? So remember, gaze, maintain, look away, come back. Okay, and when you're looking away, it can be possibly for me personally, when I use this tactic, is sometimes when someone says something and they're still at an early point in the conversation and I want to take a mental note, so I have to look up and be like, oh, okay, mental note, I need to come back to that later, and then come back and maintain the eye contact. And remember, if you're a shy person, practice in the mirror, looking at yourself and looking away, and such, okay? Even when you're doing the follow-up questions, it's a very good opportunity for you to practice holding the gaze of the speaker and then looking away to find your train of thought. Because sometimes you can lose your train of thought when you're listening and when you're speaking. So that's a very good opportunity for you to use that tactic, okay? So far, we've talked about verbal nods, we've talked about summarizing and paraphrasing, we've talked about maintaining eye contact, okay? All right, so what else do you think as an active listening skill is important? It's important to be still. Now, when someone is talking to you and you're busy doing other things, and it is a conversation of importance, because there can be some conversations that can be light in that they do not require a sit down, they do not require that maintenance. But then you should be able to tell the difference between a light conversation versus a serious conversation that requires a face-to-face eye contact and active listening skills. Okay, so if it is a serious conversation, it's always important to remember to give the speaker some form of respect, and that is why active listening skills are so important. If the conversation is important and the speaker is the one who determines its importance, right? They're coming to you as an audience to listen to what they have to say. Now, it is your prerogative to decide if you value the conversation at the end of the day based on who is talking, what is being said, the environment around you. Because sometimes it's impossible to have a serious conversation in an environment that is extremely noisy or that's not suitable for the conversation. So based on all of that, then you decide if you have the mental capacity to have that conversation or to perceive that conversation. All right? And at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you. So if you would like to build your active listening skills, I would encourage you to do all of the above. Okay? The verbal nods, the eye contact, the summarizing and the paraphrasing, the eye contact, maintain, look away, come back, follow-up questions, all of those are very important. And you know what? Active listening skills are things that you can add to your CV. So take time, build that, and remember, if you build your active listening skills, then you can also be a good communicator because you're communicating importance to who is speaking. And at the same time, you're teaching yourself how to perceive the environment around you. Now remember, hearing and listening are two different things. Hearing is the ability to perceive sound, whereas listening is actively paying attention to what is being said and processing it. I hope that you can take the skills and develop them in your own time because it's very important. Sound is how we communicate. Sound is how we survive in our environment. Sound is how we communicate with other beings around us and how we perceive them. So take time to develop your listening skills and learn. And that will be it for our episode today. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Anel Ngriathi. I am a counseling psychologist and a wellness coach with Nafsi Wellness, and I will see you on the next episode of Horizon TV's Behavior Change. Until then, bye.